Hello everyone and welcome back. We have the latest roadmap update and monthly report for May 2025 to go over today. Hoping there's some really big things, maybe some ship news, gameplay with maybe engineering or FPS scanning. We're going to take a look at everything. First, we're going to go through the roadmap really quick. Nothing too crazy there, and then we will go ahead and go through the monthly report. So let's go ahead and get straight into it. Okay, so we'll start with the roadmap roundup again. This is not going to be very long. There was nothing new added to the roadmap. All we have is basically all the new cards that have been added a couple weeks ago have been set to committed. So we have the Irradiated Apex Valakar, the Irradiated Adult Valakar, the Irradiated Juvenile, and the Irradiated Copian. So 4 technical new creatures coming in with this patch. We have those new hairstyles that are being added, a couple of additional ways you can customize your character. We have radiation gameplay, so there's new radiation zones at the Lazarus complexes on Pyro 1, where you have to use special gear if you want to survive in those. We have the new ASD research facilities on Pyro 1, and the ASD data centers on Pyro 4. You can get key cards there. There's a bunch of loot, all sorts of goodies there to loot and find, and those you get stuff for the new activity there as well. We have the Stormbreaker sandbox activity, where you can fight the Apex Valakar, get a bunch of goodies, and then you use those to turn into Wicklow for different rewards, including, as we can see here, the Argo Atlas ICT. And now again, I'm sure this will probably be on the pledge store. You can probably buy it, but there'll be ways to get it in-game through Wicklow. There'll be an Atlas ICT and an Atlas Geo ICT. The Geo will give you the jump jets and the kind of backpack that the Atlas Geo has. You can put some weapons on there and all sorts of good things like that. We have Wicklow special ships. There have been several more ships being added: the Mirai Guardian QI, the Mark II Super Hornet, the Misk Fortune, the Aopa Nox, Mirai Pulse, and the RSI Ursa Medevac. Those can be, of course, unlocked by trading in favors and other items to Wicklow. We have the Volt Laser Prism Shotgun. I've tried that a lot. Really fun to use. We have the Sterling Exploration Suit. That's a radiation armor that's able to protect you in those radiation zones, and Dynamic Rain, which is really cool. On a lot of different planets. Might get added to some more in the future, but it is our first step towards Genesis Dynamic Weather. Then, of course, we have mentions of the new ships we got in Invictus: the Idris P, the Greycat MTC, the Mirai Guardian MX, and the Mist Starlancer Tech, and the Anvil Asgard. Those cards have been set to release because those ships, of course, are out. So that is everything for the roadmap. Again, no new additions, nothing changed on the progress tracker or anything like that. So that's all for that. Let's now transition over to the monthly report, and let's get into going through that. All right, PU Monthly Report, May 2025. Alpha 4.2 Stormbreaker is alive in the public test universe. There's still a lot to do behind the scenes as the new content gets pushed to the breaking point in preparation for live release. Alongside patch fixes and other various changes, many teams touched on tech, locations, and upcoming updates coming later this year. Read on for all the latest info. Let's get into it. First, we have AI content. AI content continued to support Star Citizen's monthly release cadence. It was exciting to see the comms calls start to make their way into the game, as well as finally unveiling the newsflash content around the landing zones. These little updates will help provide players updates about the events happening around the verse from the AI content team. As they continue to develop these features, the devs requested additional functionality to allow for new features, such as scheduling, as well as scope out work to make things like channels. AI content also continued to support the mission teams as they integrated new comms content alongside new lines for Wicklow. On larger scale initiatives, the team worked alongside Combat AI to devise a new collection of wildline triggers for combatants and how they could, or whether they should, plug into the proposed line set for generic population NPCs. The team also reviewed and standardized the trigger list used by behaviors across the game to ensure that there's a single list of context words so that everyone is operating with. This will prevent confusion when building behaviors or structuring missions. So nothing too crazy from the AI team from what I'm seeing. There's of course stuff going on in the background for future patches, but yeah, that's all from them. Let's go on next to AI features. Okay, we have a pretty big AI feature section. So let's get into it. In May, AI features ensured human combat is at an optimal state in several key areas: ammo management and behavior, cover usage, first reactions and perception, attack and defend areas, investigations, grenade use, tactics, and medical behavior. The main focus is to stabilize and reach gold standard for each. I will say, I have noticed when the server's working well, the NPCs, especially at the new locations in 4.2, are incredibly good and very, very deadly, especially when there's just a lot of them. You can get overwhelmed incredibly easily. So I have definitely noticed a lot of improvements there, which is good. It's always good to see the NPCs improve in that way. Next, we have, in pursuit of the above, various issues were fixed, including NPCs looting ammo, but too close to hostiles, NPCs handling light switch disruption, and first reactions triggering simultaneously and putting the AI into an unresponsive state. A bug was also fixed that caused NPCs to incorrectly count ammo and evaluate remaining resources, causing them to loot more than necessary. Various improvements were made too, including how NPCs select and use cover for shooting. They also made it easier to add new information to the AI weapon component debug, and improved the investigate flow to work better over a range of conditions with multiple NPCs at different awareness levels. The devs also customized the friendly fire check so that it could be balanced to give NPCs the desired behavior and prevent them from shooting when players feel they shouldn't. The Wildlines setup channel was updated to enable the devs to mute and suppress already queued lines after the death of an NPC. Defend area and combat movement queries were also updated to ensure NPCs don't get stuck in spawn closets. For example, if too many NPCs are set to enter a 3 meter by 6 meter area, they will get stuck. New tech and features were implemented too, including logic to prevent low to medium priority wildlines from triggering during track view sequences that NPCs are involved in. Logic was also added for switching the aim target location to the visible element of the body while considering aiming priority, torso, and then head. AI features also finished work to ensure NPCs animatedly react to compromised cover, cleaned up the NPC medic flow to make it more robust and improve the visuals, and added additional debugging to balance first reaction times for audio and visual events, and added trait debugging to prevent conflicting behavior traits. A fix was added for placed dead bodies to prevent them from causing the AI to react when, from a story perspective, they already exist in the world. And finally, for AI features, the team added audio proc clips to take down animations so that nearby AI are alerted. They also added debug logging to disturbance events to prevent AI from reacting before the level has started properly. So I'm just seeing a lot of optimization for the behavior of AI, a lot of things that should help just improve their feel. Again, kind of like what they talked about in AI content. So just lots of things that should add polish and overall just more immersiveness with the NPCs that you come up against. So I have seen that a good amount at the new locations, and I'm hoping that we get to see more of that, more of these behaviors come into the game. So really cool to see all of those improvements. Next, we have a small section AI Game Intelligence Development Team. In May, the Game Intelligence Development Team began work on the UI prototype for Mission System V2, specifically the outline header design, including the mission object properties design, the outline infrastructure, and a generic outline panel. This also involved creating UI visuals for the outline with all its components. Alongside this, the team also fixed small bugs and worked on features requested by the game designers to improve StarScript. So, Mission System V2. So potentially that might be, I don't know if that's their internal like tools of how they design missions or if that's what we would see on our side. Not entirely sure, but nothing too crazy there from the AI Game Intelligence Development Team. Next, we have AI Tech. Last month, AI Tech continued to improve how navigation links connect to external zones. The team are currently updating links that utilize motion warp, such as a mantle or jumping down, to rely on specific metrics, which enable them to be utilized by different categories of creatures. Updates were also made to the chase movement request to allow multiple destinations around bigger targets, like ground vehicles or apex creatures. The first stage of ongoing improvements to 3D navigation was completed. This involved voxelizing custom areas and allowing them to define granularity. Currently, the voxelization data is being used to improve collision avoidance during AI ship flight. The core work for serializing subsumption variables was completed, which is used for network synchronization and the save and load mechanism. For the subsumption conversation feature, a clustering algorithm was added to split participants into more meaningful groups. This group data will be used to create avoidance obstacles, meaning NPCs will be able to avoid others already in a conversation group. On the tool side, multiple usability improvements were made to StarScript, such as allowing bulk node deletion and the discarding of invalid sub-platforms when loading a platform or marking a document as modified when reordering variables. So a little bit more of a technical section, I would say. So just again, more optimization and changes to it. Seems like this is more movement stuff, how they react to creatures or ground vehicles apparently. So we'll have to see. Maybe we get some further events or things that we see throughout the year where that'll be actually noticeable. I think with the Apex creatures, you'll probably see it somewhat with the Valakar. But yeah, so we'll have to see on that. But that is all from AI Tech. Next, we have animation and character art. So animation, the facial animation team recorded and processed content for upcoming releases for both new and existing mission givers, including Wicklow. They also continue to provide new voice packs that will populate generic NPCs throughout the verse and began supporting the recently added Newsflash content. Animations were developed for an upcoming creature too. So, some other new creature beyond the irradiated versions of these the worms and the copian that we have. Hopefully, it's like a brand new creature that we have not seen before. So yeah, looking forward to seeing that one whenever we get that in the game. And then for character art, May saw the character art team progress with new creatures, a heavy armor, and gameplay rewards. They also kicked off a light armor. The concept art team prepared handoff sheets and explored future in-game armor rewards. So more stuff being worked on, armor, creature stuff, all those sorts of things. I believe there is, from the last roadmap update from 2 weeks ago, there had been a medium utility armor mentioned. I don't see that mentioned here, so it's probably that it's already done. But that's, I think, going to be in a 4.2.x patch that we'll see that. But as we can see, they're, of course, working on further armors and other things that we'll see in the future. All right, so next we get into our ship update section. We have a pretty decently sized section here. So, art ships. As usual, May was extremely busy for the vehicle content teams as they supported new releases, progressed with upcoming vehicles, and kicked off projects for the next year or so. So they're already working on stuff that's going to be next year. I mean, they're working quite a bit ahead. So in Europe, 4 unannounced ships progressed. The first officially entered production, so that's a brand new one that we haven't had mentioned here before, I believe, while the second progressed towards its upcoming white box review gate. The third continued down the production pipeline, with the artists currently awaiting feedback from the Lot Zero review. So that one's probably getting close. That one would probably be coming out in maybe the next couple of months, probably, maybe in August or so. The fourth received considerable attention during its white box phase, particularly around the cockpit entry requirements, as it will receive entirely new enter and exit animations, something rarely done to this level. I have no idea what ship that would be referring to. I don't know if it's a new ship, if it's a variant. Considerable attention around the cockpit entry requirements. I don't know. Maybe that would be maybe an alien ship, or I don't know, something that just is weird. I don't know. If you have any guesses as to possibly what that could be, let me know in the comments, because I'm not entirely sure what that would be, but something is getting some considerable adjustments done to the cockpit entry. Next, we have for already announced ships. So this is going to be, I'm assuming after this, all ships we've heard of already. The Anvil Paladin progressed through Greybox, benefiting from the recent work on the Asgard to help speed up its creation. So with it being in Greybox right now, I think there's a really good chance we probably see this either at CitizenCon Direct in October or at IAE in November. I could see it being kind of the medium-sized ship we get at IAE. So you have about a year from it being announced to it being released. So really good to see that that has been mentioned again and that it's going through Greybox, going through the production line. We have the Consolidated Outland Pioneer continued its long and extensive white box phase. I'm sure it will be in that probably for at least a few more months. From the vehicle content team, the sheer scale and complexity of this ship mean this is a longer than normal phase. So you can translate that to a white box is going to be longer than normal, gray box will be longer than normal, and so on. It's going to be a while before we see the Pioneer, but I'm sure once we get it, it will be absolutely amazing. And hopefully by the time we get it, we'll have some uses for it. All right, so now we have a mention of a ship that we have not heard anything mentioned about for the last couple of months. So then, after a short pause to help close out the Invictus ships, work resumed on the Ironclad, with a focus on blocking out every room with the appropriate Drake kits. So I don't know if that means it's in Greybox. I would assume that means it's in Greybox. But the Ironclad sounds like they took a short hiatus just to get everything out for Invictus. It has now resumed work. So again, it's possible. I think there's a pretty good chance we could see that as well at IAE. We'll have to see as we get more through the year, maybe through once we're through the summer, depending on what the monthly reports say. Then we'll probably have a better idea if we'd get that. But it's looking good, so I'm hoping we get that later this year. With the Guardian MX Live, the North American teams moved on to closing out an upcoming variant for its impending release. This, I think, very possibly could be the assumingly Prowler variant that we had seen in the latest sneak peek. I would not be surprised at all if this is this. We don't know what it does yet, but it seems like that's probably what it'll be. That ship has successfully passed its final review, so basically ready to go out. And another unannounced vehicle passed its white box review following minor adjustments to one of its key mechanics. So this is, again, we're in the announced ship section, so this is one that we already knew about. It was one of the unannounced ones. But it's still in white box, so that one's probably still quite a ways off. So depending on how big it is, that'll kind of determine when we'd see it, if it'd be later this year or early next year or something like that. And then finally, for the ship section, the RSI Apollo, Medevac, and Triage passed their gray box reviews, with a focus on ensuring each medbed module tier is distinct without being disruptively different to use. So I think last monthly report, they had said they've been doing a little bit of concepting, I think, for the medical area and the bridge, but seems like now they've gotten that solved, and it has now passed its gray box review, which means it should be in Lot 0. So the Apollo's I am with that. I think it's very likely we get that at, again, either probably CitizenCon or IAE. I don't know that they'd really release it anytime before then, like with like being a patch ship. I think it's more likely we'd see it at one of the big events, but good to see that. And then finally, the RSI Perseus continues through Greybox, ready for its gate review early this month. So sounds like the Perseus is just about done with Greybox, and then sometime early this month, we'll be moving into the Lot 0 phase as far as I know. So good to see that that has been progressing. Again, I think that was confirmed by John Crew that it will be coming out during IAE. So looking forward to seeing that when we get that in game. But that's going to do it for the ship section. Let's go ahead and let's check out what else we have to go over. So we have the community section. Usually there's not really that much here. It's just going to be some stuff for Invictus. So I don't think we won't really bother going over that much. Let's see, anything big? Not really. Some Bar Citizen stuff. All those good things. Okay, let's go through core gameplay. We have a very big section. Oh boy, here we go. Buckle up, everyone. Okay. Core gameplay. Core gameplay are currently working through a long list of weapon improvements to further modernize the FPS experience for both Squadron 42 and Star Citizen, including tweaking how disruptive weapon raising is to the flow of combat. Engineering and design collaborated to iterate on these improvements and provide more polished combat gameplay. Work on hacking continued, which involved highlighting suggested abilities for certain gameplay situations. Abilities are also now disabled when they're not applicable in a specific situation to better explain hacking gameplay. The hacking terminal now also supports color-coded terminal output for better clarity. So we could see some hacking components or things like that coming. Maybe we end up getting the Legionnaire at some point this year if we get hacking into the game. The team also wrapped up work on the new Argo Atlas ICT and Geo ICT, both of which support weapons instead of their utility attachments. Additional bug fixes and polish are underway, but the team is excited to further expand the Atlas platform and provide players with more options on the battlefield. So it's possible they might be working on some other weapons or things like that we get for the Atlas. But yeah, really good changes that really good information that I'm seeing so far. So next we have for engineering, the team reviewed feedback and outstanding work before dividing the feature into smaller milestones. The first milestone primarily covers core gameplay mechanics, such as the engineering screen and its ability to manipulate power distribution and item states. A recent internal review provided feedback and polish that will be addressed before the feature reaches players. The diagnostic screen also received new functionality and utility. As part of the ongoing quality of life initiative, Core Gameplay also are working on improvements to the harvestable and loot systems. This is to address various performance issues and, more importantly, give the designers more control over how harvestables and loot are spawned. For Alpha 4.1.1, the devs enabled the ability for players to quantum travel to their own vehicles, which was received positively by the community, although as far as I know, there are some bugs with that. Hopefully those will get ironed out. Item recovery is currently progressing, with tasks for Tier 1 progressing. So they are working on Tier 1 item recovery. Maybe we'll see that's maybe in a couple of months. We'll have to see, but good to see that they are actually working on it and didn't just put Tier 0 in and then, leave it for a while. So I'm really happy to see that. As part of the space combat focused content in Alpha 4.1.1, Core Gameplay supported design in tweaking and tuning recoil for vehicle weapons. In collaboration with SFX, VFX, and vehicle content, they made a concerted push to polish the combat experience in cockpits and turrets, and are hoping to expand this to more weapons soon. As an additional stepping stone toward the new vehicle radar and scanning system, changes were made to the information available to players before a ship is scanned. The team are currently reviewing the feedback that came from this change and are looking to implement improvements that smooth out that flow. Quantum interdiction is also being reworked to be more compatible with server meshing. Leveraging tech developed for Alpha 4.1 to communicate across different volumes on different servers, this rework is primarily about reliability and not the mechanic itself. We recognize that there is an imbalance between lawful and unlawful gameplay and want to ensure players on both ends have the tools needed to contend with the other from the Core Gameplay team. Next, the recent work on control surfaces has reached a major milestone, with most of the atmospheric flight model behaviors now in first pass implementation. As part of this, ships will now more accurately reflect the expected flight behavior based on lift, drag, angle of attack, and other factors. Thrusters currently activate smoothly to compensate for different atmospheric densities, while hovering feels more natural. Good to see really good progress there. The Core Gameplay team fixed numerous issues related to cargo crates intersecting with each other alongside the ability to retrieve multiple vehicles from a hangar. Players now also receive a warning when their ship accumulates distortion damage. So, are we going to get the ability to retrieve multiple vehicles from a hangar? Possibly in the future. I know they've changed it so you can pull the Atlas up on the freight elevator, but if we could pull like several small ships up on like a big hangar at the same time, that would be a really good change. For upcoming gameplay, medical beds now heal radiation damage. A pass was also done to ensure players receive proper visual feedback on radiation in the environment. Now there is a picture here, and it says work in progress, and it does look kind of Greyboxy. I think this is the Apollo, because if I remember correctly, the Apollo has two medical rooms. We can see looks like it's here, one is kind of through that glass there, and then I think this would probably be the front of the ship. So I think this is a picture of the Apollo, actually. So you can kind of see there, that's, the state of it. Looks good so far. I don't have many complaints. We'll have to see, of course, when it's fully polished up. The medbay already, just from What I see, though, it looks like it's going to be a lot nicer looking and more clinical looking than what we have on, say, the Polaris. That med bay is not the greatest that I've ever seen. So yeah, looks good so far. If you have any thoughts on that, let me know in the comments. I know there's probably a lot of people that have been waiting for the Apollo for quite a while, so you'll probably be pretty excited to see a little bit of an update on that. Okay, so now back to what else we have for core gameplay. So, the transit rework, internally referred to as the transport system, continued toward the first playable version for internal validation. The team moved transport from push system to serialized variables on the transport manager for improved reliability. To validate the new system, design trialed the transport system in the new Babbage HABs. They're currently addressing feedback and issues resulting from the test. For the Apex Valacar, the core gameplay supported the character and AI teams on multiple fronts. For example, the irradiated Apex Valacar's projectiles will now spawn hazard volumes that damage the player over time. The Apex creature also spawns a molehill wherever it exits or enters the ground. FPS radar and scanning also progressed. The devs can now specify if contacts should remain visible for extended periods after they have been first scanned, which is useful to the designers in curated situations. Additionally, they can now reduce the signature of a contact if it's considered dead. For example, dead NPCs are no longer detectable from the same distances as living ones. As part of the upcoming patch release, a lot of feedback was received around the reliability and quality of the new comms notifications. As a result, the team is working through various improvements to ensure mission givers appear at their best and don't awkwardly look at players. Finally, for core gameplay, the team are currently supporting an upcoming global event, including new ways to track and display player progress. So, lots of really good updates in the core gameplay section, more things on hacking, engineering, radar, all sorts of stuff. If you have any thoughts on that, make sure to let me know in the comments. Do you think we're going to be getting some of these new features sooner than we might think, maybe in the next 2 months or something like that? I don't know. I'd love to hear any thoughts you have on that. All right, now we have a small section for lighting. Lighting supported all recent and upcoming patch releases, including adding environmental and dynamic lighting to interactable event locations in Pyro. A very small section there. A little bit of a picture of one of the locations on Pyro 4, I think. Maybe it's Pyro 1. I think it's Pyro 4, though. Locations. The locations team continued to support the ongoing monthly content releases. Last month, there was a particular focus on Invictus Launch Week, with the devs looking forward to releases in July and August alongside updates to Wicklow. So, sounds like further new locations in July and August. Updates to Wicklow possibly could be maybe some new things in Wicklow's Emporium that you can look around and see. Maybe there's some other things they're going to add to the station itself, but of course, more new locations coming in the future. Now let's go over our narrative section. May brought with it a flurry of activity for the narrative team. The top of the month saw them tackling bugs found in Alpha 4.1.1 PTU in preparation for the patch's full release. Simultaneously, members of the team finalized new content that will be heavily narrative focused and even feature audio recordings for players to discover. Beyond that, dozens of new mission contracts were created for upcoming gameplay to not only provide players with critical information, but a sense of character as well. The writers also worked on scripts for new mission providers who will be making an appearance later this year. Because of the time involved with writing, recording, and processing performances, there's an interesting balance of locking down a script while allowing for the design team to continue refining the gameplay as they continue development. This often means that we record alternate lines that would be useful in case the scope or design of a new mission needs to be adjusted closer to release. That's from the narrative team. And finally, the team solidified the story plans for next year, taking the initial high-level outline and pulling in more details to help other teams continue with their planning. So they're already, again, narrative's already planning for next year. I don't know if they're going to keep doing the kind of monthly patches next year. Maybe we'll go back to kind of the quarterly patches. We'll have to see. I have definitely like the monthly ones. It makes for a lot more interesting content more frequently. So we'll have to see what happens, but some good stuff coming from the narrative team there. All right, we're getting to the end here. Pretty close. Online technology. In May, the network team continued to work on dynamic server meshing, separating the DGS assignment from the territory manager. The objective is to base territory runtime redistribution on several factors, including entity and player distribution and overall shard occupancy. Subsequent work will remove territories from the equation altogether, allowing compute resources to be deployed exactly where they're needed. So I want to say that's the first mention we've heard, at least in a while, of dynamic server meshing being worked on, but they are working on it. So really good to see there. The Live Tools team worked on improving moderation tools to provide a better user experience for everyone. They also improved the solution that allows the publishing team to schedule in-game messages and continue to add smaller improvements to the various tools used across development. New infrastructure was deployed to better handle game crashes and errors too. Online Services continued work on the item imprint system, including the design aspects, and progressed with diffusion removal to lay the groundwork for the social refactor. Online Services also continued to help fix various issues that were discovered by players alongside minor improvements to the mission system tools. So some good stuff there. Again, I think the big thing is dynamic server meshing is being worked on. Whether or not we see that this year, I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see it till next year. I don't know how much more complication that adds to things or how much more difficult that is on top of just regular server meshing, but good to see that it is being worked on nonetheless. And we have our final section for this monthly report, UI. In May, the team completed the UI for an upcoming event, creating various screens to support the narrative and gameplay. Once implemented, the design teams kicked off plans for the next one. I don't know if this is referring to what we're getting in 4.2 or maybe even 4.2.x. I don't know. We'll have to see. The new Mirai UI was also finished, which the team kept quiet until the launch of the Guardian MX. Mirai uses vibrant colors and dynamic shapes, which are great fun to work on and mark an interesting departure from the retro sci-fi look of our other styles like Drake and Aegis from the UI team. The new layout and shapes were a challenge to implement with the existing setup, so the team assessed the problems and rewrote the UI core to make it easier to create more interesting styles in the future. Elsewhere, performance improvements continued, with the team investigating spreading UI processing across multiple cores. Visual prototypes were also worked on for some interesting but currently confidential 3D interactive UIs to replace one of the older systems in the game. That might be a hint to maybe a new inventory system coming, which I think the game definitely needs. But sounds like they're working on some prototyping for that, so it's still going to be a while before we see that. But yeah, that's going to do it for UI, and that is going to do it overall for the May monthly report. Again, lots of really good stuff, good updates for gameplay, ships, all those sorts of good things. If you have any thoughts on anything that was mentioned in today's report, feel free to let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed this read-through and a little bit of a breakdown, feel free to leave a like on the video as it really helps the channel, and if you want to see more Star Citizen news and updates, feel free to subscribe as well. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and until next time, I will see you in the verse.